Zelda Link's Awakening Remake. The original title has a dear place in my heart, as I remember going on a road trip to Canada and taking my Game Boy with me. I remember all I had to amuse me was 3 games and a bunch of PC magazines. At the time I was trying to decide which 386 computer to buy. If that doesn't make me an old man, nothing will. Anyways, I had these 3 games. Tetris, 007, which was a really bad James Bond action game, and Link's Awakening. Let's just say I spent most of my time playing that. I had no guides to help me because it really didn't exist, unless you count the Nintendo Power spreads on this game. I have never 100%ed this title, unlike my son, because I just don't care about doing that in games. I remember being so impressed on how they packed such a well-made game into a small cartridge. And looky here, they seem to have done it again. Now this is just a remake of that game. There are very little differences from what I could tell. There do appear to be more seashells to collect and a boring dungeon maker. But other than that, the gameplay is the same. But it plays way differently. On the Game Boy you only have 2 buttons, so you are constantly changing weapons and tools. This has much more efficient button management, and that's mostly because there are just so many more buttons. Now the story is about Link, who is on a raft for some reason. A storm sneaks up on him and he washes up on a mysterious island where he's told he needs to wake a fish in order to escape the island. I mean, why not just use some of the wood that you see all around to make another raft? As far as I can tell, they never really explain why he couldn't leave the island. So they have you go on fetch quests so you can go into dungeons so you can get new items. The MacGuffin this time around is a bunch of instruments you need to find. It's no different than having to find a crystal or a pendant. It's just some random thing you find in each of the dungeons. The different dungeons will have items in it which will help Link progress through the world, and other dungeons. You know, pretty standard stuff in Zelda games. The biggest thing about this remake is the change in the visuals. It has a nice toy-like quality to it. It makes the characters and enemies stand out more. That's not to say the original game was ugly. It actually had amazing visuals for the Game Boy at the time. There's usually a puzzle to find your way into each of the dungeons. It wasn't usually just straightforward. You would need to explore and talk to people and do quests for them to get things in order to access all the dungeons. And that helped pad out the time on this a little. But in the end, this is a fairly short game. But since this is a remake, there really isn't much they could have done about that. Now I saved the worst for last, but luckily it's pretty optional unless you're doing a 100% completion route. The Dungeon Maker will let you have drag and drop tiles that you can put in a set pattern that you need to go into them and complete them. The rooms that you are making can be changed a little, but for the most part it's the same rooms you've already explored. I really didn't play much of this, but the littlest played it for quite a while, and even he got tired of this. If it was completely changeable with the ability to upload your dungeons for people to play online, much like Mario Maker, this might actually be fun. But for now it feels like an add-on they just didn't put too much thought into. The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening Remake. The game looks amazing. It's better in every way to the original game. Other than the optional Dungeon Maker, there's not really a lot of bad things to say about this title. Now with that being said, it is fairly short with not a lot of replayability. That's why I say you should just rent this for the time being. $60 seems way too much to ask. They should have started at $40, and if you can find it at that price, yeah, I'd say it's worth a buy. But you can't beat this over a weekend, so that's why I say you should just rent it. And if you want to buy it, wait for it to go on sale.